Hi everyone. Welcome to our last recording of the Odyssey, because after this you will finish book 11 on your own and then read books 12 to 13 on your own. So right now you should have your flashback sheet out. You should also have your map out, and it's always good to have the style study out, and of course have the Odyssey and a pen or pencil handy. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out to you is that book 11, which is what you'll be reading. I'll be reading with you, and then you'll be finishing on your own. That is simply this. So book 11 is Odysseus's journey to the underworld. And that's part of the hero's journey. They need to go on a visit to the underworld.
So if you take a look at your map, you will notice that Odysseus has been hanging out here at, at Aea with Circe. And now it's just a short journey to the land of the dead. Okay, so he doesn't have far to go in this part of the book. Okay, so you can see my messy markings above. In terms of an overview, here, Odysseus is headed to Hades, because Circe said that he needed to see Tiresias. So that's the only reason he's going. Tiresias is in the land of the dead. And as I already mentioned, one element of epic poetry is a trip to Hades. So Hades was a god, Zeus's brother, who ruled the underworld, but Hades is also a place, the underworld. All right, so let's get started. Now, down we came to the ship at the water's edge. We hauled and launched her into the sunlit breakers first, stepped the mast in the black craft, and set our sail, and loaded the sheep aboard, the ram and ewe. Then we ourselves embarked, streaming tears, our hearts weighed down with anguish. Okay, so let's remember that Circe told Odysseus that he needs to make an offering to the dead. That would be these are sheep, so a male sheep, the ram, and a female sheep, the ewe. Okay, but Circe, the awesome nymph with lovely braids, so that right there is an epithet, mark that accordingly, who speaks with human voice, sent us a hardy shipmate, yes, a fresh following wind ruffling up in our wake, bellowing out our sail to drive our blue prow on as we, securing the running gear from stem to stern, sat back, while the wind and helmsman kept her true on course. So Circe gave them a nice wind to set them on their way. The sails stretched taut as she cut the sea all day, and the sun sank and the roads of the world grew dark. So underline this because it's a stock phrase that we will see again. And she made the outer limits, so the boat. The ocean river's bounds where Cimmerian people have their homes. Okay, so I circle them because they're kind of like a new character. And these are the people who live near Hades. Their realm and city shrouded in mist and cloud. The eye of the sun can never flash his rays through the dark and bring them light. Not when he climbs the starry skies or when he wheels back down from the heights to touch the earth once more. An endless, deadly night overhangs those wretched men. So that sounds like a terrible place to live, a place where the sun never shines. There, gaining that point, we beached our craft, and herding out the sheep, we picked our way by the ocean's banks until we gained the place that Circe made our goal. Here at the spot, Perimedes and Eurylochus held the victims fast. All right, the victims in this case are the animals that are going to be sacrificed. And I, drawing my sharp sword from beside my hip, dug a trench of about a forearm's depth and length, and around it poured libations out to all the dead. All right, let me pause here. Libations, guys, are liquid offerings to the dead. So yes, they would sacrifice animals, but they would also pour out drinks for the dead. And here, just a little note, is you can write down that Odysseus digs a trench to pour his libations to the dead. Okay, so here they are. First with milk and honey, and then with mellow wine, then water third and last, and sprinkled glistening barley over it all. And time and again I vowed to all the dead, to the drifting, listless spirits of their ghosts, that once I returned to Ithaca, I would slaughter a barren heifer in my halls, the best I had, and load a pyre with treasures. Okay, the other thing I need to mention here is that, starting here with dug a trench, all the way down to here, 12 lines. Okay, so guys, bracket this off. This is a stock phrase, and where it appeared before is on page 246. So it's a long stock phrase. All right, so let's continue reading right here. And to Tiresias alone, apart, I would offer a sleek black ram, the pride of all my herds. And once my vows and prayers had invoked the nations of the dead, I took the victims, the sheep. Over the trench I cut their throats, and the dark blood flowed in, and up out of Erebus they came. Okay, Erebus is another name for the underworld, and who came is the dead. Flocking toward me now, the ghosts of the dead and gone, brides and unwed youths, and old men who had suffered much, and girls with their tender hearts freshly scarred by sorrow, and great armies of battle dead stabbed by bronze spears, men of war still wrapped in bloody armor, thousands swarming around the trench from every side. Unearthly cries, blanching terror gripped me. Okay, so here you can mark off these 3 lines as a stock phrase that we will see on page 270. And I wrote a little note. Basically, it looks like a bunch of zombies, a bunch of dead people. I ordered the men at once to flay the sheep that lay before us, killed by my ruthless blade, and burn them both, and then say prayers to the gods, to the almighty god of death and dread Persephone. So Persephone, for some of you who may know, is the wife of Hades. She got tricked into staying in the underworld for 6 months of the year, and the other 6 months while she's above in the world is when things grow. Things don't grow when she's down below. Anyway, continuing on. But I, the sharp sword drawn from beside my hip. Okay, so I think we even saw that on the last page. It's a stock phrase. Sat down on alert there, and never let the ghosts of the shambling, shiftless dead come near that blood, till I had questioned Tiresias myself. Okay, this is definitely a stock phrase, and we see it on page 252. Okay, but first, the ghost of Elpenor, my companion, came toward me. So guys, if you remember, Elpenor was the youngest member of Odysseus's crew, who the night before they were to set sail for the land of the dead, got really drunk and slept on the roof. And in the morning, when Odysseus was rousing his men, he woke up and was very confused, forgot he was on the roof, and stepped off and broke his neck. So now here's Odysseus meeting him in the land of the dead. He'd not been buried under the wide ways of earth, not yet. We'd left his body in Circe's house, unwept, unburied. This other labor pressed us, the other labor being to come to Hades. But I wept to see him now. Pity touched my heart, and I called out a winged word to him there. Elpenor, how did you travel down to the world of darkness? Faster on foot, I see, than I in my black ship. My comrade groaned as he offered me an answer. Royal son of Laertes. Okay, so mark that as genealogy. Odysseus, old campaigner, is an epithet. The doom of an angry god, and God knows how much wine. They were my ruin, captain. I'd bedded down on the roof of Circe's house, but never thought to climb back down again by the long ladder. Head first from the roof I plunged. My neck snapped from the backbone. My soul flew down to death. Okay, guys, and mark this as a stock phrase starting here. To climb back down again by the long ladder. Head first from the roof I plunged. My neck snapped from the backbone. My soul flew down to death. And this is a stock phrase that we see on page 246. Okay. Now I beg you by those you left behind, so far from here, your wife, your father who bred and reared you as a boy. This is Elpenor talking to Odysseus. And Telemachus, left at home in your halls, your only son. Well, I know when you leave this lodging of the dead that you and your ship will put ashore again on the island of Aea. Okay, that's where Circe lives. So he says, I know you're going back to Aea. Then and there, my lord, remember me, I beg you. Don't sail off and desert me, left behind, unburied. Don't, or my curse may draw God's fury on your head. Okay, so basically Elpenor, you can write a little note, is requesting a proper burial. And this was very important in Greek culture because if a body wasn't buried, then they were not allowed into the underworld. And so they would have to walk around the gates, outside the gates of the underworld for all eternity. So they really needed to be buried. And the Greeks, the underworld was not necessarily, to the Greeks, a bad place. It was where everybody went. So if you were really good, that's where heaven was. The Elysian fields were in the underworld. If you were so-so, you went where most everybody went. And then if you were not good, you went to Tartarus. But so the underworld had like 3 different places. But anyway, Elpenor is saying, please bury me. He says, no, burn me in full armor, all my harness. Heat my mound by the churning gray surf, a man whose luck ran out. So even men to come will learn my story. Okay, so this would be the theme of fame. So all warriors, when they died, wanted fame. They wanted their legend, their story to continue on, being told by others. So that's what Elpenor's wish is. All right, let me continue. Perform my rites and plan on my tomb that oar I swung with mates when I rode among the living. All this, my unlucky friend, I reassured him, I will do for you. I won't forget a thing. So we sat and faced each other, trading our bleak parting words, I on my side, holding my sword above the blood, he across from me there, my comrade's phantom dragging out his story. But look, the ghost of my mother came, my mother dead and gone now, Anticlea. Okay, so you can circle her name. Daughter of that great heart Autolycus. Okay, so his mother, Odysseus' mother, is Anticlea, and his grandfather is Autolycus, whom I had left alive when I sailed for sacred Troy. So basically, this is the first time Odysseus finds out that his mother has died. He's just learning this now. Okay, I broke into tears to see her here, But filled with pity, even throbbing with grief, I would not let her ghost approach the blood till I had questioned Tiresias myself. Okay, so here's a stop phrase right there, and that was on page 251. At last he came, the shade of the famous Theban prophet, holding a golden scepter, knew me at once and hailed me. Royal son of Laertes. Okay, so mark that as an epithet. Odysseus, master of exploits. Mark that as an epithet. Man of pain. Another epithet. What now? What brings you here, forsaking the light of day to see this joyless kingdom of the dead? Stand back from the trench. Put up your sharp sword so I can drink the blood and tell you all the truth. So the whole reason that Odysseus has had to come to the land of the dead is to see Tiresias, because Tiresias is a great prophet and he is going to tell Odysseus how to get home safely. Okay, that's why Odysseus is there. Moving back, I thrust my silver-studded sword deep in its sheath, and once he had drunk the dark blood, the words came ringing from the prophet in his power. So this is Tiresias. A sweet, smooth journey home, renowned Odysseus. This is what you seek, but a god will make it hard for you. I know you will never escape the one who shakes the earth, obviously referring to Poseidon. Quaking with anger at you still enraged because you blinded the Cyclops, his dear son. Even so, you and your crew may still reach home, suffering all the way, if you only have the power to curb their wild desire and curb your own, what's more. From the day your good, trim vessel first puts in at Thrinacia Island. Okay, so circle Thrinacia Island, and you can write down that this is Helios's island. Helios is the god of the sun. So he's saying you are going to end up at Helios's island, and if you are self-disciplined, you will get home safely. So he says, there you will find them grazing, herds and fat flocks, the cattle of Helios. All right, Helios's cattle were his prized possession. So he says, Tiresias tells Odysseus, hey, you guys are going to see the cattle, god of the sun who sees all, hears all things. Leave the beasts unharmed, your mind set on home, and you may all still reach Ithaca. So he warns them to leave Helios's cattle alone if they want to get home safely. Bent with hardship, true, but harm them in any way, and I can see it now. So here's the other path. If they harm the cattle in any way, your ship destroyed, your men destroyed as well. And even if you escape, you'll come home late and come a broken man, all shipmates lost, alone in a stranger's ship, and you will find a world of pain at home. Okay, so from here to here is a stock phrase. Yeah, it's a stock phrase. Okay. This was the curse that the Cyclops put on Odysseus. If you remember, it was the prophecy. Okay, so he says, if you touch the cattle, yeah, maybe you'll make it home. You alone, a broken man, all your shipmates will be dead. You won't even have your own ship. You'll be in a stranger ship. And when you get home, everything is going to be a mess. Okay, so he says, what's going to happen is crude, arrogant men devouring all your goods, courting your noble wife, offering gifts to win her. No doubt you will pay them back in blood when you come home. But once you have killed those suitors in your halls, so remember, Tiresias is a prophet, so he's telling what's going to happen in the future. By stealth or an open fight with slashing bronze, go forth once more you must. Carry your well-planed oar until you come to a race of people who know nothing of the sea, whose food is never seasoned with salt, strangers all, to ships with their crimson prows and long slim oars, wings that make ships fly. So what Tiresias is telling Odysseus here is that if he makes it home, he will have to leave once again after he kills the suitors to go find this other race of people. And here is your sign, unmistakable, clear, so clear you cannot miss it. When another traveler falls in with you and calls that weight across your shoulder a fan to winnow grain, so Odysseus is going to have an oar across his back, and these people have never seen ships before, so they're going to think it's a fan. He says, then plant your bladed balanced oar in the earth and sacrifice fine beasts to the Lord God of the sea, Poseidon, a ram, a bull, and a ramping wild boar. Then journey home and render noble offerings up to the deathless gods who rule the vaulting skies, to all the gods in order. So Tiresias is telling Odysseus what he's going to need to do to make peace with Poseidon. And at last your own death will steal upon you, a gentle, painless death. Far from the sea it comes to take you down, borne down with the years, in ripe old age, with all your people there and blessed peace around you. So he's basically telling Odysseus that he's going to have a nice death in old age. I replied as the prophet Tiresias finished, surely the gods have spun this out as fate, the gods themselves. So underline this. You could put the theme is fate. But tell me one thing more and tell me clearly. I see the ghost of my long-lost mother here before me, dead, crouching close to the blood in silence. She cannot bear to look me in the eyes, her own son, or speak a word to me. How, Lord, can I make her know me for the man I am? One rule there is, the famous seer explained, that's Tiresias, and simple for me to say and you to learn. Any one of the ghosts you let approach the blood will speak the truth to you. Anyone you refuse will turn and fade away. Okay, so this is the effect of the blood on the ghosts. If they drink it, they can talk to Odysseus. And with those words, now that his prophecies had closed, the awesome shade of Lord Tiresias strode back to the house of death. But I kept watch there, steadfast, till my mother approached and drank the dark, clouding blood. She knew me at once and wailed out in grief, and her words came winging toward me, flying home. So this is where Odysseus' mother, Anticlea, speaks. Oh, my son, what brings you down to the world of death and darkness? You are still alive. It's hard for the living to catch a glimpse of this. Great rivers flow between us, terrible waters, the ocean first of all. No one could ever ford that stream on foot, only aboard some sturdy craft. Have you just come from Troy, wandering long years with your men and ship? Not yet returned to Ithaca? You've still not seen your wife inside your halls? Mother, I replied, I had to venture down to the house of death to consult the shade of Tiresias, seer of Thebes. Never yet have I neared Achaia. And remember, guys, that Achaia is another word for Greece, which is where he's trying to get back to. Never once set foot on native ground, always wandering, endless hardship from that day. I first set sail with King Agamemnon bound for Troy. The Stallion Land. Okay, the Stallion Land is an epithet, mark it, that describes Troy. To fight the Trojans there. But tell me about yourself and spare me nothing. What form of death overcame you? What laid you low? Some long, slow illness? Or did Artemis, showering arrows, come with her painless shafts and bring you down? Tell me of father. Tell of the son I left behind. Because remember, guys, that Odysseus has not been back in 20 years. Do my royal rights still lie in their safekeeping? Or does some stranger hold the throne by now, because men think that I'll come home no more? Please tell me about my wife, her turn of mind, her thoughts. Still standing fast beside our son? Still guarding our great estates, secure as ever now? Or has she wed some other countryman at last, the finest prince among them? So here Odysseus is asking his mother about his family, and his mother replies, "Surely, surely," my noble mother answered quickly. "She's still waiting there in your halls, poor woman, suffering so. Her life an endless hardship like your own, wasting away the nights, weeping away the days." Okay, so go ahead and mark this as a stock phrase that we'll see on 297. No one has taken over your royal rights, not yet. Telemachus still holds your great estates in peace. He attends the public banquets shared with all. The feasts a man of justice should enjoy, for every lord invites him. As for your father, and Odysseus' father is Laertes, he keeps to his own farm. He never goes to town, with no bed for him there, no blankets, glossy throws. All winter long he sleeps in the lodge with servants, in ashes by the fire, his body wrapped in rags. But when summer comes and the bumper crops of harvest, any spot on the rising ground of his vineyard rows, he makes his bed, heaped high with fallen leaves, and there he lies in anguish, with his old age bearing hard upon him too. And his grief grows as he longs for your return. So basically, I just underlined this because Laertes is living with his grief that Odysseus is gone and has not returned. He sleeps on the ground, basically, in rags. And I, with the same grief, I died and met my fate. So she, Odysseus' mother too, died of grief, and this would be the theme of fate. Okay. No sharp-eyed huntress showering arrows through the halls approached and brought me down with painless shafts. Nor did some hateful illness strike me that so often devastates the body, drains out limbs of power. No, it was my longing for you, my shining Odysseus. You and your quickness, you and your gentle ways, that tore away my life that had been sweet. So basically his mother died of heartache because he didn't return. And so now this is back to Odysseus. My mind in turmoil, how I longed to embrace my mother's spirit, dead as she was. 3 times I rushed toward her, desperate to hold her. 3 times she fluttered through my fingers, sifting away like a shadow, dissolving like a dream. And each time the grief cut to the heart, sharper, yes, and I cried out to her, words winging into the darkness. Mother, why not wait for me? How I long to hold you. So even here in the house of death, we can fling our loving arms around each other, take some joy in the tears that numb the heart. Or is this just some wraith that great Persephone sends my way to make me ache with sorrow all the more? My noble mother answered me at once. My son, the unluckiest man alive. Okay, so this is an epithet. Just gonna bring that up, okay? This is no deception sent by Queen Persephone. This is just the way of mortals when we die. Sinews no longer bind the flesh and bones together. The fire in all its fury burns the body down to ashes. Once life slips from the white bones, and the spirit, rustling, flitters away, flown like a dream. So guys, these 5 lines are the theme of death. But you must long for the daylight. Go quickly. Remember all these things, so one day you can tell them to your wife. And so we both confided, traded parting words, And there slowly came a grand array of women, all sent before me now by august Persephone, and all were wives and daughters once of princes. They swarmed in a flock around the dark blood, while I searched for a way to question each alone. And the more I thought, the more this seemed the best. Drawing forth the long, sharp sword from beside my hip, and I know we've seen that before, stock phrase, I would not let them drink the dark blood all in a rush. And so they waited, coming forward one after another. Each declared her lineage, and I explored them all. So basically, now that he's talked to Mother, all these other women, are dead women, I should say, are approaching Odysseus. They are the wives of, I guess, dead princes and royalty that he knew, and he's going to talk to them. They are not important in the scheme of things, so that is why I have drawn this and this and this. So we're just going to skip this page. And we are going to continue skipping because, again, this is just a bunch of women, dead women, who have come to speak with Odysseus. And again, more skipping. Talks to Leda, he talks to Iphimedia, talks to many other people. So, again, just draw lines through this page. Okay, so you can skip these top 3 lines. And actually, these 2. Okay. All right, but when you get here, whatever is this line, 375 or something like that, right here. But the time has come. So remember that Odysseus has been telling this whole story to the Phaeacian people. He ended up on their island after Calypso released him. And so he's been telling this tale to King Alcinous. So here we return to the present. We move out of the flashback and he's talking to the Phaeacians. And he's telling them, but the time has come for sleep, either with friends aboard your swift ship or here in your own house. My passage home will rest with the gods and you. So if you have your flashback sheet, this is the second bullet to the bottom, Phaeacia and Alcinous. And on your map, it is number 15, Phaeacia. So if you have those things out, that's where he is right now. So Odysseus paused. They all fell silent, hushed, his story holding them spellbound down the shadowed halls till the white-armed queen Arete, that's Alcinous's wife, suddenly burst out, Phaeacians, how does this man impress you now? His looks, his build, the balanced mind inside him. The stranger is my guest, but each of you princes shares the honor here. So let's not be too hasty to send him on his way, and don't scrimp on his gifts. His need is great. Great is the riches piled up in your houses, thanks to the gods' good will. Following her, move this up, okay, the old revered Achenius added his support, the eldest lord on the island of Phaeacia. Friends, the words of our considerate queen, they never miss the mark or fail our expectations. So do as Arete says, though on Alcinous here depend all words and action. And so it will be, Alcinous stepped in grandly, sure as I am alive and rule our island men who love their oars. Our guest, much as he longs for passage home, must stay and wait it out here till tomorrow, till I can collect his whole array of parting gifts. So they're going to send him home with a bunch of gifts, which would be the theme of hospitality. Alright guys, so this is where my annotating with you stops. You are going to read pages 261 through 270. Let me just double check that. Yes, on your own. Annotating for the elements of epic poetry, the stock phrases, the Homeric similes, the genealogy, and the epithets. So as you're reading 261, Odysseus is still talking to Alcinous, so he's still in the present. And then on 262, he's going to continue his story in the underworld. So that's going to be the rest of book 11. He finishes talking to Alcinous and continues on with his story in the underworld. And then book 11 ends with the underworld. The beginning of book 12, we're going to see Odysseus return to Circe's island briefly to bury Elpenor. And then book 12, he is going to, a lot happens in book 12, but if you look on your flashback sheet, that's where he, it's bullets going from Circe, so 1, 2, 3, bullets 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So Circe, the Sirens, Scylla and Charybdis, Helios's island, and then Odysseus's ship is destroyed by Zeus. That's book 12. And then book 13 is the very last bullet where he gets to return to Ithaca. So that's what you have to look forward to. And hope you enjoyed this annotation session. And I will hopefully talk to you soon. Bye.